In April 2026, the global media landscape suddenly compressed into a dense, inescapable cluster of truly bizarre events. First, a deleted AI-generated image surfaced showing the president in a Jesus-like mode, a depiction he defended by stating he thought it made him look, quote, as a doctor. Simultaneously, a McDonald's DoorDash delivery was staged at the White House, where the president distributed fast food while answering questions about potential war with Iran. That same news cycle tracked a high-level feud between the American executive branch and the Vatican, driven by the Pope's condemnation of mass deportation policies. Taken separately, any one of these headlines reads like typical internet noise or political opportunism, but observed together, they form a patterned system. They reveal a structural field where the modern operating logic of governance actually executes. We can diagnose this temporal condition as chrono-collapse. Historically, domains like institutional theology, military discourse, consumer branding, and mimetic circulation operated on separate timelines. Now they are compressed into a single continuous present. This compression forces totally incompatible registers to function side by side on the exact same media surface, requiring zero logical resolution to remain effective. Mapping how these timelines collided is required to understand state power and public reality today. This specific headline forces theology, fast food branding, and geopolitical conflict into one sentence. The scene does not need traditional discursive coherence. It requires only density of digital circulation. Underneath the spectacle, a contradiction circulated in real time. The driver who delivered the McDonald's credited a tip tax elimination policy for helping pay for her husband's cancer treatment. Within hours, a factual reality emerged. The driver's total reported income was well below the federal tax threshold. She owed no federal taxes to begin with, meaning the policy she praised produced zero mathematical savings for her. The image of a generous leader and a grateful worker generates an emotional affect that travels much faster than the factual correction tracking behind it. The digital infrastructure simply absorbs the correction as another piece of engaging content. The exposure of the lie drops into the baseline noise floor. The policy continues, and the political success of the staged event remains intact. Factual foundation is secondary. The system relies entirely on circulatory density to authorize state action. This new political terrain is governed by a structure we can call the recursive reality loop. Events occur as representation. They are staged to be digitized, absorbed into platform algorithms, converted into memes, and then fed back into reality as operational force. The limits of this loop are visible in the case of Greg Phillips, a senior official at FEMA's Office of Response and Recovery. Appointed through political loyalty, he held material authority over billions of dollars in emergency disaster aid. Concurrently, he publicly described a cosmological reality in which divine intervention involuntarily teleported his physical body to a Waffle House in Georgia. The governing apparatus accommodated this because the system lacks a mechanism to distinguish between administrative competence and ontological incoherence. Days later, the Secretary of War led a prayer service at the Pentagon, reading a text he identified as a combat mission prayer. The text was, nearly word for word, the fake biblical scripture recited by a hitman in Quentin Tarantino's film Pulp Fiction. A monologue from a 1970s Japanese martial arts film was adopted into a 1990s crime movie, absorbed into military tradition, and delivered as scripture inside the renamed Department of War. Each recursive loop stripped away its origin. These highly visible moments of systemic absurdity are simulation leaks. They push the loop so far that fiction writers cannot outpace it. When the showrunner for the satirical series The Boys wrote an episode about a superhero declaring himself a god, an almost identical scenario played out in real-world politics 48 hours before it aired. Fact and fiction reciprocally update each other in real time. The show generates the image, reality confirms it, and the distinction between the two dissolves. Absurdity does not disqualify modern governance. It is the essential fuel that drives the loop's circulation. The complex architecture of chrono-collapse extends far past macropolitics, reaching directly into the deep biology of the human mind. AI startups are now aggressively promising the delivery of perfect and infinite memory. This attempts to reformat human recollection into a permanently queryable database. By erasing the natural delay between experience and retrieval, inner life becomes an optimized infrastructure. A similar logic is moving into the human sleep cycle, with companies developing transcranial ultrasound devices to induce lucid dreams. This targets our final private sanctuary. It recodes involuntary sleep into an actionable, scoreable interface, a process we can identify as colonized sleep. Waking hours are organized into permanent data retrieval, and sleeping hours are reformatted into programmable cognition. Chrono-collapse demands that time be made available for command, resulting in a total reorganization of human cognitive life under a unified regime of access. Experiencing this environment frequently induces a psychological sensation of deep surrealism. Feeling as though you are hallucinating is actually a structurally accurate perception. Your brain is observing the awkward, unhealed seams between radically different symbolic orders that have been forcefully stitched together. Seeing an individual in an Easter Bunny costume standing directly behind a presidential press briefing condenses the entire reality loop into a single visual. That feeling of the bizarre is not a failure of your comprehension. It is the clearest indicator that a simulation leak is occurring right in front of you. The recursive reality loop defines the architecture of the present. Post-reality establishes an operational field that persists regardless of ideological stance or factual accuracy. It functions as a reorganization of temporal life, pulling once distant registers, from Vatican geopolitics to lucid dreaming, into the same circulatory space. Attempting to fight the absurdity directly only fuels the machinery. Mocking the events, debunking the lies, or sharing the surrealism all provide the exact circulatory friction the loop requires to survive. The leak is the operating logic. Recognizing its architecture is the only way